All right, so again, we're just going to be focusing on just experiments today. We're not doing any survey or sampling. We're just designing experiments. So we're going to do one method at a time, and then I'm going to give you some time to practice with that. So we'll teach a method, you'll practice a method, teach a method, practice a method, teach a method, practice a method, because there's 3 different ways to design experiments. That's what we're going to be doing today and tomorrow. So first, we're going to start with design number 1, which is called completely randomized design. This is just where you figure out how many treatments you're going to be dealing with in your experiment, and then you randomly assign. So this is where you can use your random integer generator in the calculator to do this randomly. You're going to randomly assign your experimental units. Experimental units are just the people you're doing your experiment on. So you're going to randomly assign your experimental units to a treatment. So you have your big group of people that you're going to experiment on, then you're randomly putting them into the different treatments that you're dealing with. So just completely randomized. Have your group, randomly split them up. So some populations that this method works best with are homogeneous populations, or populations where the individuals are similar in some way. Homogeneous populations where the experimental units are similar. Okay, so this would be like with your treatments, where it doesn't matter what treatment they get based on your population. You would still have similar results no matter what group they were put in. Whereas if we had like some medication and you thought that males and females might react differently, that would not be considered a homogeneous population because they would have different results. So that would not be a good situation for this type of design. So you're going to have to be able to sketch kind of some maps like this for how these different experiments are designed. So again, with completely random, you start with your big group of experimental units, just whoever you're experimenting on, and then you randomly assign them to the different groups. Again, you would just use your random integer in your calculator to do that. You can there's kind of 2 ways you can go. Actually, we'll talk about that in a minute, how to do that. But you randomly assign them into groups, and then each group will get a different treatment, and then you compare the results of those different groups from those different treatments at the end. So randomly assigned to groups, each group gets one treatment, and then you compare. So how to randomly assign the experimental units to the group, so how to do this part. You're going to first just determine the number of experimental units that you have, or that you need in each group. So for this one, having even numbers or close to the same number of individuals in each group would be the best. Then you're going to number your experimental units and perform a simple random sample, or using that random integer. Random integer. Trying to use your random integer generator in your calculator to get your first group. So if you had your group of experimental units and you're like, I need 10 people for group 1, then you would hit your random integer 10 times, so you got your 10 different numbers for who's going to be in that group. Then you do that same thing for group 2 with whoever is left that you didn't put in a group yet. Then the remaining people will be in your final group. So again, you're going to have to repeat this, doing your random integer generators until all the units have a group. You are going to have to renumber your experimental units after each sample, because after you have the people in your first group, then those people are now missing from your experimental unit, so you have to renumber who's left before you do your second group. And then once you have your 3 groups, now you just need to randomly assign treatments to the group, again using the random integer generator in your calculator. Okay, so it's a lot of random integer generators here with this one. So if you flip to the next page, we'll do an example. Oh wait, no, just kidding. I have a different packet. So it does kind of say, I think that this get pushed off to the top of your page here. Okay. So at the very top, this little box just does go with completely randomized. It is the simplest experimental design, which can lead to some flaws because you're not always going to have populations that are very similar. So we are going to be learning some two different experimental designs that are better when you have kind of more complicated populations.